In this series, I will be sharing my experience of reclassifying a commercial vehicle into a Dormatorio Especial, basically a camper van conversion, legally through the proper legal processes in Portugal. Hi, so welcome to our series, part one of our series of how to reclassify your van, commercial van, into a self-build camper van. Right, so first disclaimer, this is based on our experience and how it worked for us. Second, we are actually talking about converting a van to a Dormatorio Especial, which is a particular category that means you don't have to jump through so many so much red tape, so many hoops. And it means that you can't have a full gas installation in there. You can't have a fitted sink, a fitted cooker with all of the water and gas plumbing that might have. That suited us fine though, so we weren't problem with that. So we matriculated our van, and then we converted it to a Dormatorio Especial through the process in Portugal, which basically makes it legal to sleep in the back of it. In Portugal, you are not legally allowed to sleep in the back of your commercial vehicle. It must be either a camper van or have this classification on it for it to be legal. And we have heard stories of people being stopped and fined for sleeping in the back of unclassified vehicles. So, just a quick bit, we sort of knew quite a lot of the process, but not every step of the process before we came to Portugal. So we have insulated it, and we put in wiring for a 12-volt system, and we put in a fan and a heater. And we knew that there should be nothing else in there when we first matriculated in it. Okay, top tip number one is this process takes some time. Could take up to a year. Ours took about 4 months, but that was hampered by a few issues about inspection dates, and the post to our village is really bad. So I recommend, top tip number one is to start this process with loads of time left on your inspection, long before your inspection is due. That is top tip number one. Keep tuning in, subscribe and hit the notification bell for part two of our series, converting and reclassifying your commercial van as a self-build camper van. So, part two of the series of reclassifying your Portuguese commercial vehicle into a camper van, or exactly a Dormatorio Especial. So, second part is you need to find yourself a really good mechanical engineer, because they need to set up a project for you. The IMT, the transport authorities, need it to be done officially, and they need a project set up by a registered, well-respected mechanical engineer. We got one recommended to us from the wonderful manager at our inspection centre, who helped us with the matriculation of our vehicle. And I must say he was brilliant. Our engineer was very responsive, he was good competitive price, and he did everything really professionally. And what we did is we basically sent him pictures of our conversion, simple conversion, and we'll show you some pictures of that in another video. And he then drew it up in special scale drawings and made it all official. Now, some of the measurements he didn't have, so he asked us, you know, can you measure this bit, can you measure that bit, how big is your solar system going to be, how many sockets have you got, etc., etc. And we just responded really quickly, and he put them all into the plans. Now, he then produced a project for us and made 3 original copies of this project that he signed every copy of those. You need those 3 copies to give to IMT, the Transport Authority. Now, he didn't want payment until right at the end of the process when it was approved and he knew it was approved, because he would help us through if it wasn't approved. In the end, it was approved, so there was no problem. Now, he cost 170 euros, and I think it was really good, money well spent. He did a professional job, and he was great. However, the top tip for part 2 is, even though you have 3 copies, make yourself at least 1 or 2 more copies, because you're going to need those in the future, because all of those 3 copies are needed by the Transport Authority, IMT. So, stay tuned, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you can watch part 3 of this enthralling adventure of legalising your camper van in Portugal. Welcome back to part 3 of our experience of converting a commercial vehicle in Portugal into a Dormatorio Especial self-build conversion. So you can sleep in the back legally. Hooray! So, what we had to do next, you'll see in part 2, we had our 3 copies and the extra one which we didn't make, which you should, that was the top tip for number 2. Get your 3 copies and you go to the IMT office, and it depends on where you are in the country. Our IMT office, you didn't have to make an appointment, you could just turn up. I recommend turning up nowhere around lunchtime. It's another top tip, because it gets very busy then. So either nearer the start of the day or nearer the end of the day seems to be the best for our office. So you go there, you take your 3 copies, and you then pay a fee, and you sign various documents, and then they give you a receipt of the payment that you've made, and they also give you a receipt that they've taken all of those documents. And they explain to me that those documents get sent to the centre that deals with these technical aspects of reclassification, and that office is in Coimbra. So that was the second part of the process, quite straightforward, but make sure, the top tip is to make sure that you get a receipt of payment and a receipt of them taking in all of those documents. So you've got something to show if they get lost. End of part. So I'm liking this. It's a lock. It reminds me of the locks that I had to go through on the Oxford Canal when I was living on the Oxford Canal. They had very narrow locks like this. This place is beautiful. And welcome back to part 4 of the reclassification of your commercial vehicle in Portugal to a Dormatorio Especial legalised self-built camper van conversion. So, part 4. All the documents have been sent off to IMT Centre in Coimbra to be approved. What you have to do now is just wait. And wait. It may take some time, but eventually you will be sent a letter confirming whether or not your conversion, your reclassification, your project that the engineer has made has been approved. Now, if it's good, it will be approved. Ours was straight away. And the top tip for this one is, if it's starting to take over a month, email the Coimbra office, IMT office, with the number that you were given on the documents you were given from your local office, saying, what can I do next to help speed up this process? And that can just move you along a bit quicker. Definitely don't recommend going in with a full-on complaint and being angry about it. That doesn't seem to work in Portugal. Okay, that is the end of part 4. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you will find out about part 5 and this scintillating, incredible series of van conversion in Portugal. And welcome back to part 5 of the scintillating, fascinating, amazing guides, well, of our experience of converting a commercial vehicle in Portugal to a Dormatorio Especial, basically making it legal to sleep in the back of it. And here goes part 5. So you've sent off your stuff to Coimbra, you've chased them up. Coimbra office, transport office, have sent back approving your project. You think, yes, this is brilliant. However, there's a few more steps to go. You will then be sent an appointment from your local IMT office, which is the transport office, and they will ask you to come in to show your van to one of their local engineers. So you do that. You go in, take the van. The local engineer will then check that everything you've said in the paperwork is there properly. And mainly he's checking for things like no gas plumbing, no water plumbing, and that seemed to be the main thing he was checking. And he had a very brief look inside. Ours was very obvious that it wasn't there, and he said, yes, that's fine. Now what he then gave us, and this is the top tip, is make sure that he gives you a piece of paper saying that he approves it, that IMT have approved it in Coimbra, and now he's approved it by seeing it face to face, because you need that document to take that to the customs authority in your local area. Now, this process threw us. We didn't know about any customs issues. So we were a bit like, oh my God, we've got a problem here. It was a bit of a bombshell. And if you watch this video here, it's a bit about us going to the mountains, having had all of this hassle and celebrating that we got it all done. And he will then give you this letter, and you can go to customs. What we did is we wanted it all done in that day. So we said to him, are you about later this day? And even though the customs authority was 60 kilometers away, we went straight there, came back, and we saw him again, because that was important to get a gear, which I'll explain a bit later on. Okay, that is the end of part 5 of our scintillating adventure. Please subscribe if you want to hear more, and hit the notification bell so you get told about it. And I'll see you in part 6. So, welcome back to this series of converting, reclassifying your commercial vehicle in Portugal to a Dormatorio Especial so you can sleep in it legally and have your own self-build conversion done. So, as you heard in part 5, we had to go to take the van to get it looked at by the engineer in our local office. He approved it. He gave us a piece of paper to take to customs. Now, this was something we weren't expecting, and it was more hassle and stress than we wanted. So, we went to the office, and the first person who saw us made it very, very difficult. In fact, it seemed like he was not going to allow this. Now, by this time, we'd have approval from the Coimbra office of the IMT. We'd have approval from our local IMT Transport Authority office. Basically, this was a formality for customs. They just had to reclassify it, tell us if we needed to pay any fees or duty on it, and if we did, we'd pay it. If we didn't, they would give us a piece of paper. However, this one guy took it upon himself to be the most obstructive person I've ever faced in bureaucracy. And even when I'd got the manager on my side agreeing that everything was okay, and the other staff members were helping me out and being really friendly, this particular person was still being obstructive. And he asks for original copies of the project, which I didn't have. And this is why I said earlier on in the videos, definitely copy your project so you can just show it to him. Because he looked at me, and I had an email from my engineer with the project on it, but it wasn't signed. And he started arguing about that. And I'm saying, well, I haven't got the original. I gave it into IMT. Anyway, that got smoothed over. And then he asked for a receipt for when we matriculated the vehicle, even though it was for the duty that I'd paid to his office. He wanted proof that I'd paid it, even though I'd done it on his system, the system of their customs authority. So I found that. Next thing I had to find. He asked me for proof of my NIF number, my passport details, and my proof of residency in Portugal. Luckily, I had all of these documents with me, and that is the top tip. When you go to any of these places, but particularly our experience was at customs, you need to have every piece of documentation, every receipt, everything to do with your vehicle, your residency, your identity, all of that, have that, and your NIF number, every thing that you've got, official document, take it with you. That is my top tip. So, he was arguing the case that we could just put in, how did he know that we didn't have a cooker and plumbing, gas plumbing and things like that, to the point where we had to agree for him to come and take photos of our van so he would be happy, even though he wasn't the manager. And the manager was apologising about this guy. But for some reason, this guy had this sort of authority, so we had to downplay it. We had to make sure that we did everything for him. I was incredibly calm. I kept calm. I kept polite and respectful. This is really, really important. He was definitely trying to wind me up. He was definitely trying to make me angry. And then it would have been very easy for him to not approve the process. He knew that he had full authority. So definitely, I was always respectful, always polite. I thanked him profusely at the end when he eventually did give me the document I needed to take back to the IMT local office where my engineer was waiting for me to come back to. Okay, so that's the end of part 6. Probably the most stressful bit, and in this video up here you'll see in about the middle of it you'll see me just coming out of the office still stressing. Anyway, that bit over. With these information, these top tips, it shouldn't be so stressful for you. So subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want to find out about the next part of the process in part 7. So, welcome back to part 7 of our scintillating, enthralling adventure in reclassifying our camper van. Commercial vehicle to a camper van. So, as you might have heard in the last video, we had big problems with the staff, well, one staff member at the customs, but eventually we got the document we needed. We didn't have to pay anything because Dormatorio Especial is not classed as a camper van, so there was no duty to pay for us. So we hot-footed it back to our local office, 60 kilometres back. Watch this video if you want to see that video of that bit of our journey. And we then handed this document to the engineer. I found the engineer. He said, when I saw him, 2 episodes ago, he said, oh, you can do it within a few weeks. And I said, no, I'm going to do it today. Are you going to be here all day? He said, yeah, I'm here until 4. I said, yes, I'm going to be back before 4. So I got back before 4. I showed him the document for customs, and he gave me this all-important piece of paper which had stopped us from getting our van inspected for months. And it's a gear, and the gear basically says that everything, the whole process has been approved, everything is okay with every authority, and so if you're stopped, you can show it and the police will be happy with it. If you go to the inspection centre, they will accept that and then they can do the inspection, because of course you haven't already got your new card, your new vehicle documents, which in Portugal is a card about your vehicle, and you haven't got that. So you've got this gear, and this gear is really, really important if you want to drive around legally or if you want to get it inspected. Now, this is why I said right at the start to make sure you've got plenty of time before your inspection, because we had to then, because our van was out of inspection, we had to then get it loaded onto the back of a lorry and taken to the inspection centre, because it wasn't legal to drive, because it hadn't had its it had gone past its inspection date. Because this process had been started, the inspection centre said, no, we can't do it until this process is finished. And we had extra problems with our post. Our post in our village is really bad, so that made it even more difficult. So, top tip there is to really just make sure that you get this gear. This gear is very, very important. Ask the engineer to get you this gear. Okay, there's only one more part to this enthralling adventure. You're going to be so sad when this ends, because you just want this process to go on and on. You love it. If you engage in this process, you won't want it to stop, because Portuguese bureaucracy is just the best. Anyway, the last part to this series is coming next. If you want to see that, hit the subscribe rather, and hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in part, what is it, 9. So, part 9 of this amazing adventure. But before I tell you part 9, the end, the enthralling end, succession of this amazing journey through Portuguese bureaucracy, I'll quickly update you of all the different parts that we've had so far. So first, we brought a van over, and we'll talk about the matriculation of that van. Before we brought it over, we had it all insulated and put 12-volt lights in, fan in the roof, and a heater in the bottom. But we removed our shelving and our bed and everything. Got that out because we knew it wasn't legal in Portugal with those things in it. Once we're in Portugal and we've got it matriculated, then we started this process. And we had to get an engineer, which was fine, he was brilliant. Then we had to go to IMT office and hand in his project. Then they sent it off to Coimbra office, which they approved it at their technical advisors, technical people that approved the project. Part 5, then we had to go, what did we do then? Oh yes, we had to go to the inspection, our local inspection centre, to make sure that what we said was in the project was actually in it. And he looked in it and he said, yeah, that's fine. And he said, you've now got to go to customs. So then we went to customs, had a big conflab with them. It was quite stressful, but we eventually got the piece of paper they needed to give us to go back to the inspection centre, our local our local IMT office, to get a gear so we could drive the van legally and we could take it to get its inspection done. And then we got approval from the Coimbra office and we had this gear done. So we are now up to part 9, the final part. And this is, you relax. Pour yourself your favourite drink, your favourite tipple of any kind. Relax. It's going to take a while, but in the post you will receive your new card which says the correct classification on it. And then the process is over. So, if you like this video, like it, thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, because there's lots of other videos coming up about our life in Portugal, our homestead, and our travels in our van, which we're talking about. There'll be some about the matriculation process and the bureaucracy of that. Yeah, and thank you for watching, and I'm going to enjoy my favourite drink. Virgin Mojito. Bye. So we stopped in this beautiful Bastide village, Blasimont, and found this. And here it says that this poor man, Roger Tillet, was hanged by the Gestapo and the Vichy militia in 1944. We definitely need to be fighting fascism in all its forms to stop this sort of thing happening again.